Now, now, one, two, three. No.
We got it?
You can hear that now.
Okay, but I can't hear me. Are you talking, Todd?
I'm not saying anything right now, but we'll see if this is actually getting picked up.
So that's coming over, even though I can't hear myself.
Testing. Are we getting sound through now? Main level, are we getting sound? That's our goal. All right, we getting sound now? Doesn't look like it.
Yes, Heidi, hard. Yeah, keep coming. Keep coming. Whoa, whoa. Nice shot.
Let's double check.
Overshot.
All right. Testing 1, 2, testing 1, 2. All right. Excellent. Well, we're finally on the air with the audio after a lot of experimentation. So we are now midway through the second end with teams TBD, which is Jacob Welly at lead, Rachel Growler at second, Adam Kapp at third, and Nick Datlow skipping, versus Stone Cold Sweep Often, which is Paul Luthi, Michael Parker, Luke Thomason, and David Schlanger. So right now David's calling for a guard from Luke because they're sitting in shot position, and the red team, captained by Nick Datlow, is trying to currently blow things open so he can get to that shot rock in the just on the top of the button. Looks like Luke might be a little bit heavy. Mike Parker switches position to try and resist the curl because it looks like it's just a little bit narrow. Apparently the ice is a little slower than I thought it was, judging from back here. But then I've been following the soundboard and trying to get things working, so I haven't watched a whole lot of the ice yet. Once again, Nick is going to be calling a peel weight hit from Adam, something he's more than capable of doing. Looks like it's a pretty good shot. Should at least get the one, but looks like he's going to get one and a jam, unfortunately. So didn't quite get both of those yellow rocks out, but did kind of give himself a shot at the shot rock if they don't throw a good guard to protect that again. And David calling for that guard just like expected.
Yeah, whoa. Yeah, go ahead. Yes, go ahead. Yes, 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 hard. Gotta raise it down. Straight raise. Straight raise.
David is either a third or a fourth year curler at this point, so he's giving a significant amount of experience to Nick, who's been curling quite a long time now. I'm not sure how many years, but I believe he's over a decade curled. He's actually a skip in our Capital League, and his team currently is sitting very near the top of the standings, if memory serves me right. So he's a very experienced skip, and Adam is used to playing with him on many teams, so they make a really good pair. However, on the front end of David's team, they have some really strong sweepers, so they can take advantage of even some small mistakes and steer them in a pretty good position. Mike is sweeping in what's called the promote position, trying to get it to curl a little bit extra than it normally would. And they're now trying to drag it as much as possible down into good guard position. It's going to end up on the line they want, but a very strong possibility based on the way it's set up that Nick is going to be able to throw a rather upweight peel hit. And if he hits the right-hand rock on the top edge of it, or on the inside edge of it, he should be able to also spill right into the left-hand rock and blow them both out. Adam is trying to talk him into throwing a straight run back on the left-hand rock to double out the yellow shot rock rather than going for the double peel. It looks like Nick is highly considering it as he's looking at the angles and looking at what he'd broom in order to make that shot. In fact, it appears Adam has convinced him to go for the run back rather than going for that double peel. was to play that run back on the yellow shot rock. So what they're going to try and do is hit that yellow rock in front just a little bit to the left of center, run it back into the yellow rock in the middle, and have both of them spill out. Hopefully also moving their shot rock that they're throwing right now out of the way to leave an open play for the next one afterwards. Which probably trying to blank at this point, I imagine, is what they're looking for as their strategy. Looks like the rock may be sitting a little wide, but Jason Way Adams calling it, maybe not. No, it's a little wide. It's just going to peel that rock off the top. Never quite got back to that position, and that's, I think, why Nick wanted to throw that double peel. Be more difficult for David to put a effective guard in place if there's only one rock. At this point now, if David puts that guard back up, the only play which Nick and Adam will have is to play that run back again, rather than having any sort of open ice to go for that shot rock with. David has played this end very well to protect their shot rock and make it so all he has to do is protect what's already there rather than having to make a shot to be able to get a point in play.
Keep looking up and say, you know, it's different. That last one turned out to not be a 4. Yes. Sweet. I don't mind the first couple weeks for it because we made the right call. And then it's way too heavy. That's what I thought there.
I will say some numbers.
Little more! Yeah, just keep changing numbers. It's all good. Why? So Sam calls heights.
Okay.
Take a look, take a look.
Trying to work on fixing one more minor sound issue. Getting instructions from off-site to get everything working correctly. So David ended up drawing a second rock right into the middle, so it actually leaves him sitting 2, but there's a bit of shot where Nick can get to his shot rock, at the very least the one on the pin, and possibly also his one behind it. Looks like they're offset just enough. It's going to be hard for Nick to get to the nose on the back one. It is possible, though. If he hits it close enough to nose, which appears to be, excuse me, what he's looking at, then there's a pretty good shot he's going to stick around and be the shot rock. But the advantage of having David put that rock into the house now is it's really hard for Nick and Adam to play for a blank, knocking all of the rocks out of the house completely and keeping the hammer for the next day. Now, unless they manage to remove both the yellow rocks and spill their red rock out of play, very difficult shot that I'm not sure is really set up on the ice. They're not going to be able to blank it. They're going to be forced to take one with the hammer, which is less than an ideal situation.
Stay on it. Hurry.
Would tie the game up. There's nothing wrong with taking one with hammer in this game situation. There's a long way to go, but I'm sure it's not what they're really looking for. The rock is on its way. Immediately calling the sweep on. Looks like it's starting to curl right away. Though, maybe not curling as much as they thought it was. But he does successfully hit the one that was closest to the house, and it appears that the red does score 1. So at this point, after 2 ends, the 2 teams are tied at 1. has released their first rock, undoubtedly looking for a center guard, and looks like they have successfully put that in.
Just control.
There is a possibility they're drawing to the outside. I can't really hear what the call was, and I can't see through Luke to see what the signals were from David. Rock is kind of in between on weights. It's too heavy to be a draw. It's too light really to be an effective hit, and it misses everything and goes right out the back. That is almost certainly not what David was looking for there in any capacity. So Nick is calling again for a center guard, committing to that plan of taking the middle of the ice without hammer, and knowing that rocks in the middle in the house at this point are just likely to go away. Looks like it's a little bit wide, so they're going to promote it to try and get it to move back to the middle a little bit more. Adam sweeping closer to the rock to be able to get that. David's trying for that takeout on the Rockets in the house right now. Looks like it's risky that it's going to dive early, but probably has enough ice that they can get to it. Maybe. Yeah, Luke is holding that line real well with a heavy sweep. Mike then picks up the sweep to drag it to the outside. So looks like they have now given themselves a corner guard while simultaneously removing the red rock that was biting the top of the house. That's a very effective play. Served two purposes with the same rock, and now with the new 5-guard rule, that yellow rock cannot be removed by the red team at this point. So Rachel throws her first rock of the end, trying to draw behind the existing red guard. Sweepers think it might be a little bit light. They jump on it about halfway down the ice. It is curling a lot, and it is grinding to a halt. So it appears the sweepers correctly judged it, just trying to get it over the hog line and keep the rock in play, and they've successfully done so. So now they've given themselves a stacked center guard. And David has decided, rather than to draw them to the outside with that double-stacked center guard, he's going to just try and draw behind it right now and beat red to that position that they want to have. Either sitting on the top of the house to block the draw from Nick Datlow's team, or just taking shot position themselves so that it's much more difficult for red to steal. Mike is very narrow with his shot, though, and it is going to be all over the red rock. Well, maybe not. It picks and starts going the opposite direction. Loses its handle, reverses direction, and they are able to drag it right next to their other yellow guard. I'm not sure it really helped their position, but sure made for a more interesting shot, and at least it didn't crash onto the red rocks and risk promoting them in. So, you know, it could have been worse considering the very narrow delivery from Mike. You don't see that from him very often. He's a very solid curler. Actually curled out of Yale University and skipped their college team, and he skipped them straight to a situation in the national championship game. Though I can't remember completely whether or not his team won in the college nationals or whether they came in second. So I'm not going to commit to saying that, but I know they did extremely well on the college circuit. But he is a very high-end curler, especially for a curler that's only in his 5th year at this point. Looks like the red rock is right out the back, so that's not going to help their position any. And gives yellow another chance to steal that shot position away before red can throw it. Here goes Mike trying to get a better delivery and a more accurate delivery. He is definitely wider on the rock than he was the last time. Should give them a chance to curl behind. It is holding its line a lot early. So even if they get into the house, it doesn't look like they're going to be able to get fully buried. But they're at least trying to get the rock in the house. And it looks like they have just barely achieved that objective. It just gets onto the top edge of the 12-foot. Looks like Nick and Adam come to a consensus that they're just going to go ahead and remove that yellow rock. They don't like where it is. It blocks the draw they want to throw. So they're just going to get it knocked right out of there and set things up again with a blank house. Rock is kind of narrow. Really need to hold that line in order to get to the yellow. Sweepers are working hard. He's yelling at them to never stop the whole way down, and it gets right to nose. Does not appear from our camera view that that rock is biting the house. So looks like right now there is nothing scoring at this point in the end. And even though that rock is not counting, or if it is just barely biting, David wants to get rid of it. It is something that he doesn't like, that probably that red can promote. To be able to give them a shot rock, it would be very hard to move if they do so. He's throwing a hit, looks like it's hanging wide potentially. Words coming back at this point? No. It is hanging wide the entire way down. And that rock is going to go right out the back with no effect. Now I'd be surprised if Nick is not calling that promote that I was just talking about. And there it is. Looks like Nick was possibly looking at straight drawing the rock in, but immediately Adam yells the "should we promote," and there it goes.
Keep coming all the way. Keep coming. Try to get past. Keep coming.
Out of the hand. Looks like it has some good speed to it, but it's definitely narrow of the target. Looks like they're going to crash into that guard. And they're unfortunately going to actually make the shot more open for yellow because they have just split the guards out of the way.
Same thing.
My guess is David is trying to get Luke to hit that red rock on the right-hand side and roll the yellow rock in. Though he's also considering doing some sort of a hit on the top guard, probably just trying to peel it off. No, his team talked him into coming the other direction, which is probably the better play. I mean, if the rock hangs, you might be able to roll one way. Really ideally cross that face and roll to the right-hand side on those guards.
Hard! Hard!
Looks like it's very downward for a hit. Maybe they're just trying to draw in. No, it's got enough. It's going to hit it with a decent amount of force. And they just barely roll onto the house. Can David sweep hard enough to get it out? Yes, he does on the back. That was a fantastic shot, doing the hit and roll to the right-hand side and getting a counting rock. Now, unfortunately, looks like there's a pretty good open lane for Nick to draw behind their rocks, and it would be very difficult for them to remove it if he successfully makes that draw. Nick discussing where the broom should go for the line. And anticipating a lot of swing on this ice. He goes almost to the point you'd normally throw for a center line draw, but on today's ice where it's swinging 6, 7 feet on some lines, this might fully bury underneath those rocks on the right-hand side. might also be cutting, it's been pointed out to me in the warm room with an accurate observation, that the might not just be that the ice is cutting, but we recently sharpened our stones over the last couple days. They haven't really broken in yet, so with that new surface on the bottom of our rocks, it may be that they're gripping a little more, causing it to cut across the house more than they normally would. It's also causing them to grind the pulp a lot faster when they're going. So very often you'll end up with those draws that look like they're really good, coming up short of their intended target. And apparently they have a fear of that here, as they are sweeping like crazy rather than letting it curl further across. And it does get into the house, but it sits down in the back 12, so red is the shot rock at this point. Commentary from the warm room correctly asserting, why did David stop sweeping that? David's coming down now. He's going to try and throw that draw, and it wouldn't be a terrible thing if they come down on top of that red rock in the back and just give it a little nudge. That would put them in 1-2 shot position. But at the same time, looks like they're just trying to draw to get to shot. There's only 2 rocks left after this one, so a lot can happen in those 2 rocks, but at the same time, if yellow can get that rear rock out, they've set themselves up in a pretty good position to get 2, unless Nick throws a really good draw with the last rock. Immediately the sweepers get on the rock, though Luke thinks that they are incorrectly judging that for the speed, and definitely need to let it curl, because it is hanging out on that red rock. They really don't want to promote that into the house. It is going to make contact with the red, but not enough to do much other than, well, really guard that back red rock if you're thinking about it. And now they've pretty much taken away their play for 2, sort of running back that yellow. That red guard is going to make that an awkward, difficult play. And just to make it even more awkward and difficult, Nick and Adam are looking to draw their rock into the house behind that yellow guard and really make themselves in position to steal 1, maybe 2 on this end. That crash guard on the last rock for David really cuts down his options for the rest of this end. We've seen so far that this particular line that Nick and Adam are brooming for is one of the few that may actually be holding its line on the ice. So whether or not this rock is going to come off of that line and curl enough to get through the opening.
As a plan B, if this doesn't overcurl enough, hitting and flopping here is great.
Adam is pointing out to Nick that if the rock does hold, they have a good plan B of chipping off of their existing red rock to create a guard for them. With them already sitting primary shot in the back there, just blocking off the draw lane and making them have to go a little wider, a little lower percentage with the hammer probably is to their benefit. Nick's rock is on the way. Adam thinks it's light, and I do too, coming out of the hand. Sweepers are on it very hard to try and get it into the house. I don't think they'll mind if that ends up as a guard. Maybe they're going to get it there. Yeah, it's actually fully into the house. It's going to squeak by that top yellow, get behind the others, and it is going to settle just in front of that back red. They are sitting 1-2, leaving David's team with little to do except for try to follow them down and sit in better shot position. And they're looking at some promote type of shots, but those are really low percentage plays. If you don't hit that yellow rock at exactly the right angle to move both those reds on the back, you're leaving them to score potentially 2 as a steal, which that is a really difficult situation to dig yourselves back out from. They really should just be drawing for the run through that port, taking the safe play, and getting out of the end without additional damage.
I'm worried about this out here. I don't want to mess with this out here.
Whatever's saying to him is this.
Mike Parker, being a skip himself, is going down there probably to talk them out of trying to throw that run back. He's signaling like he wants them to throw the draw. Sounds like Luke is worried about the draw crashing. They're also worried about it going through, and apparently they're not really trusting their draw weight all that much, which in this situation they really have to be confident that that's what they can do. I don't think that run back is really a wise play given their position on the ice and the timing in the game. Get your one, get out of danger, move on.
Unless you think it's really short, no, you just have to touch paint. Don't touch it. We intend to, like, be running hot.
I think their pro side on this shot is to be a little bit on the heavy side because they've got that backing if it curls enough. Little worried about this line. They're going to have to hold it a lot early. They might have wanted to take another couple inches in order to give themselves some room to not crash their own yellow rock in front. He's wide on the delivery though, so now it's got a curl, which it looks like it's doing, and they are jumping on this rock for sweeping. Need to make sure it gets there all the way in. That rock is going to settle down nicely on top of the red for 1. So they managed to get out of danger. That's why you throw the draw and follow them down. You had the backing. You were in a safe situation doing that. You escape the dangerous situation with the 1 point. Then you go out to try and steal in the next end. All right. So, yep, this is definitely a guard weight rock, curling right down to the center line. Mike's giving it some extra distance, but they need to get off of it to let it stop before it goes too far off the center line. So that's going to end as a nice tight 3 guard. Not exactly on the center line, but just enough. It's going to give them a very good situation moving forward if they can get a rock high. Jacob's going to be throwing a guard to the outside on the right of the house. This is to allow them to set up the end where they can get 1 rock on the outside and hopefully keep the middle clear down the line so they can have a draw for 2 at the end. Looks like that rock is going to end up pretty much on the spot where there's coins in the ice that is used for doubles to represent where you'll place a guard when you are setting up what's called the power play. So that's a pretty good position to get a rock hidden behind it. It's going to be difficult to take out, difficult to sit on top of, to cut down. So it's pretty much where you want it, ideally maybe about 6 inches to 8 inches to the left, but it's certainly one they're going to be able to use down the line if the end gets set up. This is halfway! Sweepers say that the draw thrown by Paul is hack weight, which means it's probably going to go right out the back. It looks like it's biting and slowing down a little bit, though. Mike is staying close. This might actually end up a really good rock. Little behind T-line. Nick sweeping to make sure. It comes down to the back 8 foot. Not bad, but not really what they were looking for.
out to here, it's okay. All right. Is that more ice? Yeah. Okay.
Nick is calling for another corner guard. He's calling for one that's going to be in between the yellow guard and the red guard, as they are right now. Said that draw in wouldn't be bad as a plan B. It looks like this rock may be gliding a little bit on its line. It's going to travel a little further since it's not spending its energy going to the outside. And it looks like they're going to get into 12 foot on that right-hand side of the house. David very aggressive. Straight at him. Mike Parker is certainly a good player to throw hits with. Relatively accurate. Can throw weight with a fair degree of accuracy. Rock is curling quickly, so he throws his sweepers off of it. Looks like if he's lucky, he'll get the outside edge of the rock. But there's a danger, even if they did hit it, it would just promote it towards their own, and it goes right by, just a little bit light and a little bit narrow on the delivery, and it goes right by the outside edge.
I thought you were, yeah.
David yelling back down that he thought the rock was wide and held off on the sweep too long, thinking it may not get back and hit all of the red rock, let alone cross the entire way over it.
Nice shot, dog.
Rachel's delivering down the ice, and Nick's calling for her to remove that center guard. He's trying to get the rock to come across, since it looks like it's not hanging the same side, and he successfully gets it to at least remove the yellow guard, trade the colors, and get a little bit further to the left with their now red guard.
A little more ice.
Rather than throw a guard to protect their current shot rock, yellow is again aggressively going for that red rock in the house. There is a theory of they can't score the rocks they don't have, so there's a reason for it. This rock is not curling like the last one did, though. They almost missed the other side, but they managed to hit, spill over the top of their own rock without touching it, and did remove the red, so the rock is successful. Luke had a little bit of a slip in the house there, so thankfully he managed to catch his balance at the last minute. No injuries, no harm, but now the expected next shot happens where Nick is making sure that yellow also can't score for their current shot rock and looking to take it out. Rachel's setting up in the hack. Looks like he's calling for a normal weight hit based on the line he's giving, which is a rather hard upwing hit, and it's curling almost right away out of the hand. Sweeper's going to have to work to hold that line. Looks like they've successfully kept it clear of their guard, and that should definitely get rid of the yellow rock. Looks like it's also going to spill the red off, but I don't think they mind that result. Generally, a hammer team is trying to keep the center of the ice clear, and if they left that rock there, it would just give something for yellow to freeze down onto, making it more difficult to remove and setting up the potential for yellow to get away from this end of the steal. Rather than just draw in at this point, which would force Nick's team to actually have to pay attention to their rock, they're looking to set themselves up more aggressively for the steal by putting a center guard back in place. The risk is that they don't make the draw with one of their last two rocks. Red can ignore their guard, draw to the outside, and then try and draw to the middle at the end. They may have a situation where if David's not able to make one of his draws, they may just be drawing to, as they say, touch paint for a second point. But this is the strategy that will give yellow an opportunity to steal. Whereas if they just drew in, the odds are is that Nick and Adam would be just looking to pull those rocks out of the house. Looks like at this point, red is abandoning the strategy of going to the side, and they're just trying to draw in under their own guard at the top of the center. So they're essentially, as with last end, trying to just steal that middle position so that yellow can't get there before them, sit in a dominant shot position. The end's not setting up super well for them to get to unless there's a miss from yellow. So they're just trying to take advantage of the current situation, get rocks in the house, and make the other team get a shot. Looks like he might have been a little bit narrow, maybe also a little bit heavy. That rock needs to bite and slow down if they're going to play a promote as a plan B. It does look like it's going to promote it. Is it going to send it too far to the right?
That wasn't planned, was it?
No, it's going to come behind the yellow rock, but out the other side. That's going to be available for Luke to throw a hit at. Just a little too much angle. And of course, as I just said, that's exactly what David and Luke are going for. If they manage to throw this a little more down weight so it crosses the face, they'll be able to roll behind their own yellow rock. At the very least, removing that red rock. Once again, so they can't score the rocks they don't have and force them eventually to take the with hammer if they can't get a rock. Whoa, get off of that rock. It is holding its line and drifting out. They need that to come back if they're going to have a shot of making anything out. And it is holding its line the whole way in. Quite honestly, at that point where it wasn't going to make the full hit, David should have probably had them sweeping to make it go past, because their worst case scenario would have been hitting the edge of it with not enough force to remove it and actually putting that red rock under cover completely, because they need to remove that later if they want any chance of preventing red from getting two. And red is making sure that play does not exist by trying to get a rock at the top of the house, preferably biting to being halfway into the 12-foot. If they manage to do that, they're actually setting themselves up in a position where they might be able to score three.
I think I'm very, very wide.
I'm being told that the sounds on the ice might be significantly more than what is coming through on my commentary, so we've tried to make an adjustment on that. Feel free to comment. We do have somebody helping us out with keeping up with the commentary, and if we're able to make adjustments, we're happy to do so. It looks like that red rock is possibly going to over curl as a guard, so now they really want it to get into the house to at least get that second point in play. It may not do the primary objective, but it'll do the secondary one. Oh my, that doesn't just get into the house, that curls right down to the top of the 4-foot in nearly ideal position. The one thing wrong with it is it over curls the guard just by a little bit, and by doing so it leaves it open for David to throw a straight hit at it. Looks like based on the broom he's calling a normal weight hit, because otherwise he needs to give himself a little more ice, which they just did, so probably now going more a control weight hit. For those who are not as familiar with curling, a hack weight hit is going to stop right about the point of those things that kind of look like starting blocks back there that people are throwing the rocks out of. That's called the hack. A bumper weight hit is going to hit the back wall behind the hack and maybe come back out 3 or 4 feet. A control weight hit is going to hit that back wall and probably come back out to the middle of the house if nobody stopped it. And a normal weight hit, well, that's going to have some significant speed that's probably going to go 15, 20 feet behind the back wall if it was let to go. There's also peel weight, but that's probably not going to be thrown by too many people at this level tournament. And it's really just removed or used to remove rocks from in front of the house and make sure that your own rock doesn't stick around either. And Luke immediately asking for a sweep on it. It is real tight on their own guard. It calls them off for a half second and realizes that was a mistake, and it removes their own guard from play without getting to the red shot rock. Now red is probably going to put a rock up in the way to protect it. Yes, they are. It is now setting up for a possibility for red to score 3 or 4 based on that miss. Now red's going to try and get something in the way to guard that middle rock, because that's the primary shot position. The possibility of yellow being able to throw a hit and roll off of their back one to out-count it, but that's a very difficult shot requiring a high degree of accuracy and a good amount of control on the weight. The odds are that that is a more difficult rock, though they are now possibly calling for the rock to be in front of that outside one, because it's more likely that the yellow rock hitting their front one is going to be in the open, leaving them more chance to score. So they're talking through the plan. Couple different options here for them. Not entirely sure what they want most right now. I might also be looking at, with the skill level of Nick throwing this rock, possibly splitting that top red to open the middle of the ice. If you throw a rock maybe back 4, back 8 weight, you could move that shot currently on the top of the house to the left, spill your own shot rock over to the right, make it very difficult for yellow to do much to remove both, and if they're drawing for the middle, it's giving yellow very few options to be able to be hidden and outcount their rocks. Now let's see which shot they actually call, as they've discussed 3 or 4 different plays now. And it seems like Nick is deciding just to draw another rock over to that right-hand side of the house, making it difficult for them to remove 2 of them and hopefully leaving things to be open for their last hit with the hammer, assuming yellow even removes the middle rock if they're not trying to draw down on top. We'll see what happens here. A lot of what yellow will call will be dependent on where Nick's rock ends up on this shot. Quick score update on what's going on the other sheets. On sheet A, Big Inglis is currently up 10-0 over Big Fallon. So it looks like that game is getting rapidly out of hand through 4 ends. On sheet C, Big Lawrence is currently up 6-2 on Special Sauce. So they have a comfortable lead, but having just played against Special Sauce in my prior game, they have the ability to make some good draws and promotes. And right now, yellow is sitting 2 in that game, so they have a chance to make up some points on this end and maybe get right back into this game. And on sheet D, Big Ray is in a very close match against Curlers to be named later, currently sitting 2-1 after 3 ends. So back to our feature game here that you're watching. Nick's rock actually comes up short of the house, protecting their outside rock, but leaving their inside rock wide open and not setting them up to get any additional scoring. So it protects them in one regard, but really leaves the hit open, and if yellow's able to roll over to the right-hand side, they may even be able to be sitting shot rock behind that guard that Nick just threw, which would probably be putting them in a pretty bad position to score more than 1. So that is, of course, what they're calling. Wouldn't even be too bad if they rolled to the left, as long as they ended up out-counting red in the end. It would be much more difficult to do so to the left-hand side as opposed to going to the right. I am suddenly realizing also that you are seeing the house from the reverse angle that I am, based on where the on-ice cameras are for the webcasting versus the warm room. I apologize. Everything I've been saying in inverse for what you're watching. I am looking at the my perspective sitting behind the ice and what I'm seeing from our television in the warm room, so I can tell where the shot rocks are, and just looked over at the control screen and realized you're seeing it in exact opposite perspective. So my apologies on that. I'm sure you kind of figured that out by now, but figured I'd apologize and correct for future. Looks like the rock is holding its line, hanging out on the left-hand side. That is going to hit way too thin. It is not going to hit thin enough for the double. It is not going to hit thick enough that it's going to roll under the cover. So unfortunately, now red has a draw for 2. Adam tries to talk Nick into throwing a hit on the outside one. I don't know why they do that. The yellow rock is largely irrelevant to the scoring at this point, as it's sitting second shot position. As long as they draw something to touch the white area of the house or the 8-foot circle, they're going to be able to score 2 on this. Exactly what you want to do at minimum with hammer. They cannot be disappointed with the way this end has shook out for them. Nick setting up for the draw. Comes out. The sweepers say the weight is good. It looks like it may be fine on its own, though it might have a little much. It's gliding a bit rather than starting to cut. Luke's going to get on this right away to sweep it, and it looks like that rock on its own is going to be out the back. So Luke takes the slightly lazy approach, not making sure of it, and just babysits the rock out the back of the house. I'm sure he's doing enough sweeping as it is during this game, and a little different than when it's the skip sweeping in the house. I'm perfectly happy to put in my 6 feet of fury in order to make sure that it doesn't stick around just in case. But he's already sweeping 4 rocks and end, so I'll give him a pass on that one where it was pretty clearly out the back. Unfortunately for Datlow's team, that means they're only scoring 1. So team to be determined did not determine their own future and recontrol the scoring on the game. It is again tied 2-2 after 4 ends. Rock is coming down the ice for team to be determined. Looks like it is going to go fully into the house based on what I'm seeing from back here. And in fact it did. It is sitting the top of the 12-foot. I'm actually surprised Nick didn't have them sweep that a little deeper and maybe try and get that all the way to the 4-foot, but maybe he figures it's going to be harder for the yellow team to keep the rock in a good scoring position if they leave it higher in the house. Not quite sure. Looks like Paul Luthie's first rock might be hanging a little wide. It is not curling back as much as they would like. It's going to catch a thin piece of it here at the end. Actually, that might work out just perfect as it spills over to the left-hand side. It curled just enough at the end to get to the right position on it, spill over to the right, and put them in a more difficult to hit position, but getting a rock in play out in those wings, which is one of 2 ways to approach the hammer. Immediately, though, Nick is going aggressively to take that out of the house. Jacob releasing that rock. Looks like it might be a little bit narrow for the target, but his sweepers are dragging it out to the outside. And he does exactly what Nick would hope for, which is hit that rock and roll over to the middle of the house. Great job from both the sweepers and the skip, making a great line call. Now forcing Stone Cold Sweep often to go aggressively after that rock in the middle of the house to hopefully be able to set up their ability to score more than 1 again. The very least, by that first rock going into the house, they've set up a much greater likelihood that this end is going to result in either 1 point or a blank unless one of the team misses along the way. Yelling for a heavy sweep the entire way down. Looks like this rock is going to be just a little off center. Not going to really spill to the outside, but it's going to roll to the other side of the back of the 4-foot. And Nick immediately sets up for the hit. You're going to see a lot of hits the rest of the way unless one of these shots spills out, in which case you'll see somebody trying to set up a guard or a draw. But until one of these rocks either spills out after the hit or misses, you're going to see a lot of this same type of shot where it's just the whatever the other team hit, go ahead and knock the next one out. Now this looks like it's very narrow out of the hand. We may see that first miss right here. It is already curling off of the rock, and Nick calls his sweepers off just to save their arms. There's really no point to them continuing to sweep after it's clearly missed the rock. So unfortunately, Rachel has the first miss of the end, and that opens up David to be able to draw another rock to the outside. He could have guarded his rock, but as it's on the back end of the 4-foot, it's never a good idea with hammer to guard rocks in the back of the house, because that just lets the team without hammer use your own guard against you. And if they can sit on top of your existing rock, really makes it difficult for you to knock it back out and really set up for scoring, though. Looks like Mike Parker's rock is significantly light. He's going to end up with a guard just in a 2 position, which does give them the ability to draw under it with the next one and maybe reset for 2. But it's going to start back up that hit game without another miss in the meantime. This time, Rachel's a little bit on the wide side, overcompensating for her prior miss narrow. If this one will cut like her prior one did, it'll be able to knock theirs out. But it looks like this one's going to miss right on the other side of the rock. Swing and a miss again. That is really going to make things difficult going forward for Team 2 be determined. Now David's having them draw over to the side again. Hopefully Mike finding better weight this time with his draw. Looks like it's got a little bit more weight to it. Let's see if it decides to cut and slow down, because right now it's gliding right down that center line, not picking up the curl at all. And that's going to make it go further rather than using its energy sideways, and it goes right out the back. I'm sure they were hoping for that rock to take a little bit of bite on the ice and slow down, but unfortunately at the speed he delivered it, it just wasn't going to catch that turn, wasn't going to spend its energy sideways, and goes right out the back. Real quickly, Adam sets up for the hit, throwing a little less ice for Adam compared to what he was brooming for Rachel, as he can throw more weight comfortably at his experience level. He's going to hit on the outside edge, spill both rocks out, and looks like Nick is quite comfortable setting this end up for a blank, or just removing all the yellow rocks so it can at best be 1. Trying to make sure that's not the situation he's stuck in. David once again calls for that draw to the left-hand side, hoping to use the guard thrown by Mike 2 rocks earlier. If it wasn't going to go in like he really wanted, at least make sure it's the draw now. He yells wait only, needing it to curl a bunch, but it needs it for both weight and line, hoping to get Mike to promote it. It looks like it's going to stop top of the house. Can it get buried? It does look like it might be under the guard. I'm getting behind the hack here to look at it. It's a little bit open, but rather than try and hit it with a down weight hit, looks like Nick just wants to draw down on top of it and see if they can outcount them as a different way to remove the ability for yellow to score 2 this end. And maybe put it in a situation where David, under pressure, is going to have to throw a draw at the end to outcount them. Looks like Adam thought it was a little bit slow out of the hack, as he gives it a little bit of a push, a little bit more than what I'd even call a normal positive release. Yeah, definitely thought it was slow, as his sweepers jump on it right away too, receiving some instruction from behind. Nick is countermanding the sweepers, saying that he doesn't believe it's as slow as they thought it was. And that is going to come right down to the outside edge of it. To be honest, from my camera angle, I'm not sure who is actually shot rock right now. If those rocks are both where they are right now at the end, I'd be surprised if they don't break out the measuring tool. But maybe from their perspective, where you're not getting a little bit of a fisheye from the camera, they might be able to tell a little better than we can. So we'll see what the vices say at the end, if those rocks are still relevant and in their exact positions. Looks like Luke is throwing down that same line, probably hoping to give that red rock a little bit of a push to the outside, but they better get on this rock right now, or they're going to end up crashing their own guard. In fact, they're going to squeak right by it. Can they hold it enough not to push the yellow into their own? Well, it did push into their own, but they have been able to remove the red rock and keep both of their own rocks in play. So their yellow rock is hidden behind the guard on the your right-hand side, trying to make sure I get this correct from your perspective. But they do leave a rock back in the back edge of the 12-foot as well. That one is exposed if Nick chose to draw down on top of that. But looks like he's trying to hide his rock on top of that buried yellow rock, again trying to use their rock as backing to prevent their own from being removed. They made a great shot on the one before to just pick that red rock out of play. not an easy shot. So trying to make him have to do something difficult like that again. I am sure Nick is not happy about this current position, as this is just about the worst situation you can have without Hammer. No guards. The Hammer team sitting 2 already. That looks very light out of the hand. I could be wrong, but I would be surprised if that doesn't end up short. Adam is agreeing and yelling at his sweepers to hurry the whole way down, and not only that, but he's coming out to add a 3rd broom to the sweeping, hoping to get that rock far enough. It did actually get in. The sweepers did a great job, and they are going to draw against that back rock. Looks like they are out counting that back yellow, so it makes it again so that yellow's only set up to score 1 right now as opposed to 2, and that's not a bad result. But give you out there listening another quick score update on our other sheets. Big English versus Big Fallon has at least had what you'd call a moral victory for Team Fallon. They are now at 10-1 in that game. I'm sure that they're still frustrated. Maybe they're just throwing these rocks back in the 6th to move them back anyways. It doesn't hurt them to do so. But that game is pretty much approaching the point that it is going to be over soon. On sheet C, Big Lawrence versus Special Sauce has continued to have the lead grow for Big Lawrence. They are currently sitting 7-2. And on sheet D, in the other most interesting and close game going on today, we have curlers to be named later, currently leading 3-2 over Big Ray. Back to our featured sheet. Looks like David's team is currently trying to draw in a way to knock that red rock out without removing their own. Looks like it's a little bit on the light side, so Mike Parker is sweeping like a demon to resist. Mike countermanding his vice, thinking he knows better, and in fact he did, because that line ended up pushing the yellow rock that was well buried out to the outside, so it no longer counts, and it spills their own shot rock into a position that Nick can easily throw a hit at it and spill it through the gap or send it out the right-hand side, either way, and that's going to take it so that actually red is sitting shot rock afterwards. It's a very aggressive play from David's team, and unfortunately letting it over curl. That came back to bite them pretty heavily at this point. They were set up really well, and now there's a chance they could be set up where at best they can take 1. If red sticks around after this shot, either in the house, in the middle, or slightly to the left, they really could be in a position where all that David's team can do is go after 1 of their 2 rocks, and that's not going to allow them to score multiple when currently red is sitting shot rock. So that just really swung the end on that last shot, and it was unfortunately David's team doing it to themselves. Nick is out of the hack with some significant weight, but they put the sweepers on it immediately. Worried that rock is going to over curl. It's starting to break back. They're trying to hold the line. It is over curled it the entire way across the face, and what giveth is taken away as red just took their own rock out of shot position, leaving yellow sitting 3 with none of their own rocks in the house. That is devastating. After the prior rock gave them all of the advantage, they just gave it all back. Yellow will score at least 3 this end with a strong potential to score a 4th. All David needs to do is touch the paint with this rock to get a 4th scoring rock. Now that said, it sounds really easy, but sometimes that pressure of knowing all I have to do is touch it, you end up overthrowing it knowing you have a lot of space to play with, or you end up coming up short of it knowing that you just can count on your sweepers to get it there. And well, I've done it more than a few times myself, so It's devastating when you miss it, but if you're already scoring 3, it's one of those moments where you can take consolation in the fact your team did really well for you, and you can at least walk out of it a little angry at yourself, but happy at the end result. David comes out, and his sweeper's immediately saying, all there, maybe a little hot. They're cleaning the rock to, whoa, it did slow down rapidly on that. Maybe the sweepers misjudged. No, they definitely misjudged. That rock had it all on its own. Maybe they're gonna get it there. Sweeping every inch of the rock, trying to get it to bite, and it's there. Just barely catching a piece of the 12-foot, and maybe you can hear the cheers from the warm room. David's team has quite a bit of support here, as there are spouses of 2 of the players for them sitting in the warm room, and the people next to them getting caught up in the cheering section. So that does give yellow 4 points on the end, and David can hold his head up high, knowing that they did barely manage to pull that shot off for him. His sweepers did good work for him on that end, and they currently lead 6-2. Breaking this game wide open and putting some significant pressure on Nick's team to score multiple points on this end. If they don't score at least 2, it's going to be significantly difficult coming home, having to steal at least 2 in one of the other ends in the 7th or 8th. That is never a situation you want to be in as a skip, having to come up with a strategy to score more than 1 without hammer. Really not once, but twice if you want to win in regulation, but at least once in order to force an extra end, and having to do so 2 ends in a row. So Red really got their back up against the wall with that miss they had with their skips rock. This rock is coming out with really slow speed. I'd be looking at this going, there's a large chance it can hog. They're dragging it every inch trying to get it there. It looks like it's gonna be just over the line. Actually, by a couple feet, maybe. I was selling the sweeper's ability short there a little bit, as they managed to get it over by a couple feet. Jacob's going to draw for a guard on the outside. Again, trying to set it up so they can score multiple points as the red team. That rock is cutting right away. They might be wanting to sweep to hold the line. It's going to overcurl where he's putting his broom where he ideally wants it, so he calls them off to hopefully let it bleed out speed and stop before it gets too far to that wing. It is stopped protecting maybe the outer foot of the 12-foot circle, so not really your ideal guard to set up a good shot position, but it's there. It's something to work with. It's better than having no guard at all. Right out of the hand, David is calling on for a sweep on this rock. Quite honestly, maybe let this overcurl, because nothing would be worse than hitting and removing your own center guard and spilling them out, but fortunately it overcurls on its own. It's going to actually chip their original yellow rock perfectly onto the center line. That gives them now a firm control of the middle of the ice, and knowing that he needs to score multiple points, Nick does not abandon the strategy of getting to the wings. He's going to worry about those center rocks after yellow gets a draw successfully behind them. And they immediately shout 1-2 out of the hand, saying that they think this rock is very short. Unfortunately, by sweeping it as much as they are, they're going to leave that rock very much to the center, which plays more into yellow's hands than it does their own. They are going to get it at least out to the edge of the 4-foot. It's not completely forcing them to play the middle, but it's enough in the middle that I'm sure Nick in his head is a little frustrated by that result. I bet he was hoping for that to be a little further out. That's just going to muck things up in the middle. Now the decision for David is whether he draws to the left or the right of his guard rocks. He decides to go around on the side with their own rocks. Yeah, you don't want to risk accidentally hanging on this draw and promoting the red rock in by accident. So this is much, much, much the safer play. When you're sitting up by 4, you don't have to make aggressive, risky calls. Rock is on its way. Looks like it might be holding a little bit, but on the outside edge of the sheet, where not as many rocks have been thrown, it can slow down and cut to the middle very quickly. There goes that cut. Did they let it slow down too much, or are they going to get it to the house? They do get it in, fully buried behind both their guards in the middle, but really only sitting at the top of the 12-foot, so it does not really give them a situation where it's fully protected, or really giving a large chance to cut down the score. But it does make the red team have to play that rock if they wish to have a larger scoring area for themselves. So Nick doing exactly that right now, is aggressively throwing to remove that guard. If he can, maybe getting the double, but right now looks like he's going for the peel. No, he's letting it curl enough. He might be going for that double. No, but it just peels it over the top and spills his own guard out. That's just fine. It opened up the shots for the future. Giving a quick update on what's going on the other sheets. The game on sheet A is complete after they threw the rocks back. Team Fallon conceding to Team Inglis with a significant lead. So proud of both the teams there for getting to where they did in the event, but unfortunately that game has come to its end. Getting applause from the warm room to acknowledge their achievement getting to here on Sunday, but being wrapped up a little earlier than everyone else. So looks like the draw here from Mike Parker might be a little bit on the heavy side for the guard they were originally looking for. That rock is going to come full down to the house and give a little push to the existing yellow rock in the 12-foot, and it now has pushed their rock fully under their other guard. Nick is calling for a hit and roll off of the existing yellow rock. It has a large chance of crashing into the other yellow, maybe removing both, and if they can get the roll over to the right-hand side, this could really open this end up and set them up well. But it takes a perfect throw from Rachel, and looks like, by the way he's immediately calling them on, it's both a little down weight and also a little narrow and over curling to be able to get that perfectly ideal result. So they are going to hit with enough force to remove the yellow rock, but unfortunately it's not going to roll them into a shot position. So that still leaves yellow sitting 1, and makes it difficult for red to be able to set up for that second shot, unless they, or third shot for that matter, unless they remove the yellow rock that is currently sitting in the 12-foot. To your right-hand side. David has Luke just trying to throw a guard down the middle, but he is significantly wide of the target. It looks like that rock may actually be hitting the red rock, hopefully with enough force to take it out the back. If it's not, they just promoted red right to the middle, and red is now going to be in shot position. Fortunately for yellow, it's wide open right now, but my guess is Nick is going to be throwing a guard in front of that to protect their shot rock. Maybe he's going to play aggressive, though, down 4 and put another rock in the house. It's maybe not a terrible strategy to freeze. So discussing whether they want to draw to the outside, try and get a second counting rock split, so it's difficult to remove both with one rock, or whether they want to freeze down on top, sitting on top of their other rock, to make it harder to remove both of theirs. There's some real heavy discussion about what they're going to throw. It looks like in the end they decided they're going to throw a slightly heavy draw to push that yellow out to the left and try and spill their own red shooter over to the, well, reversed again. Spill that yellow rock over to your right and spill their own red rock over to your left in order to get set up for a second or more points. Looks like this rock needs to curl quite a bit to make this result happen. It may get there. May. It also may go right out the back, which was part of the risk of it. Also the risk of it over curled, they might have actually moved that yellow into their own red and taken themselves out of shot position. So David now with the wide open shot rock for red has the ability to just go after that with a down weight hit, bump that red rock out the back and roll out. The aggressive play by Team Datlow coming back to bite them. That's one where really Adam should have trusted his skip on that one, because the calls that Nick was talking about were much, much more likely to have success and had much smaller chance of putting them in a bad situation moving forward. So it's very light, but it's going to be just enough to move that red rock to the back edge, and that is a very good result for Stone Cold Sweep Offen. They now are sitting in a position where they are 1-2 with the red rock barely in the house, so it's going to be hard for them to use that as a scoring rock unless they can make a double, which is exactly what Nick's calling for Adam to throw here. Upweight normal hit double. He throws it very narrow, immediately calling his sweepers on the rock. It looks like it's on the guard though, so that's going to peel off that top guard and spill everything out of the house, or out of play that was involved in that one. Sorry, house was not involved. Giving yellow a chance. They're calling for potentially a corner freeze or drawing down on top of their other one just to shrink that scoring area down. They may not stick with that call in the end. David saying guard as his primary play, bringing it into the house as a corner freeze for a pro side error, meaning that if they miss the first shot, they'd rather be a little bit heavy and come down to that freeze that we were just talking about a moment ago. No. While they're discussing this, quick score update for you again. On sheet D, they are still 3-2. They have not gotten through another end yet, or if they did, they haven't hung the score yet. Well, the latter. They have not put up the score from the prior end. I'll give you an update on that once they do. And also on sheet C, set up well currently to score 1 is Special Sauce, but they are still down at this point 7-3, so they have some significant work to do this end if they want to catch up. That 1 point probably isn't going to do it. And the score is now hung on sheet D, and the update is the game is now tied 3-3. So the closest game going on in the ice right now, if we can figure out how to get the cameras to do it, if our feature sheet finishes first, we will switch it over. But it looks like our feature sheet is actually the furthest behind in the game on the ice. So the odds are we'll be watching this game right up until the end. David is out of the hack. Immediately the sweeper saying the rock is probably heavy. It's all there is what they're saying. I'd have to agree with them as it comes down. Well, no, that took a significant bite of the ice there and slowing down. They're now trying to bring it in. It's over curled the guard. So they're trying to make this rock promote the other yellow into that guard position they were looking for, or freeze it down. They're now sitting 3 in the house, making it very hard for Nick to score more than 1 here. He is looking at a triple takeout potentially. If they hit that, either of those top yellows hard enough, really the best one if they want to get the triples, they have to hit the one on the right-hand side for you at the top of the house. If they're going for just a double, they can go for the one on your left, which is what Nick keeps signaling, because the left-hand one is just a little further up, which makes it easier to get that hit. You'd have to hit with almost peel weight force on the one on the on your right to be able to actually make that rock go uphill off of the impact. Believe me, it can be done. Former Potomac member, though always Potomac member in our heart, Hunter Clausen, I have watched on more than a few occasions throw that uphill double with some significant force. He is truly an Olympic level curler. He played in the Olympic trials last year and threw one of the higher shot making percentages at the trials. So it is a shot that can be made, but I don't think Nick has confidence in throwing it himself based on what he called. He has thrown a rather heavy hit. It's starting to curl, but they need to let it curl more. Adam calling on that sweep is possibly a mistake. Will it catch just enough to get that double? In fact, it got the backdoor double. That is a better result than the called rock. It does not roll into shot position, but it does roll into a spot that gives them a chance for two and removes yellow's more difficult and buried shot rock. So that is a positive result, but immediately David's calling to take out that red rock. It's not really buried behind anything, so as long as they make the hit on that, there is literally, well, there is a way for red to score too. I'm forgetting the rock in the back of the house. That one is still hanging around back there. From my position sitting in my chair in the warm room, that is cut off by below the view in the glass. I look up and remember that that one's still hanging out back there. So there's a way still for red to get two on this end and maybe hang in there on this game as long as David makes this hit on that top red rock. Luke reminding him there's really no way to get both of those red rocks out of play as David's trying to figure out an angle for it. It's not there. It's so risky to go for it anyways. Even if it was, it's not worth throwing. So they're lined up. This looks like a normal weight hit with the broom. I'm a little worried this might over curl based on the fact coming down the middle to the outside, it tends to curl a little bit more, and it's curling right away out of the hand. Mike Parker jumping on that rock immediately. It looks like they might get it, and they will. So they're going to remove that red rock, and they achieved their primary objective. Now yellow's going to have to throw a double to be able to get 2 points on this end. And if they don't get both, there is a very large chance that yellow can actually score one off of this. The rocks aren't ideally set up for this double either. You have to catch that first yellow very thin in order to have that shooter run into the yellow rock with enough force to remove it. If you hit this too thick on the top of the rock, your shooter will just spill over the top of it and run right out of play without even touching the other yellow rock, or if you do, doing so with such light force that it sticks around in the house. So this is not the easiest double. It is not a textbook position. Out of the hand. They immediately put the sweepers on and call them right back off. Hopefully Adam's reading this shot well, as it's a fine-tuned precision shot. Let's get it. It does. They make a great double, and that lets red score two. Now they have themselves an opportunity to come back in this game going into the last two ends. So Nick making the shot that is more than within his ability despite its level of difficulty, successfully making the double and setting himself up with a strong chance to come back over these final two ends. Now he just needs to set up good center guards for steals the rest of the way and get rocks hidden behind those center guards early. David may even be looking to just steal that shot position behind his guards. It's risky, but even if he steals one at this point, it really can put Nick back behind the 8 ball again, forcing him to score 3 in the final end. Ultimately speaking, David's goal on this end, if you read curling strategy books, they talk about want, need, and worst case that you can accept. In this case, David really wants to get one. He needs to allow Nick to get no more than one, and worst case, he can't give up more than 2. That really would not be ideal for him, but at least it would allow him to go into the final end with hammer tied. If he gives up more than that, then he's put himself in a really bad position. So that's very difficult for a team without hammer to do, though. Meanwhile, Nick's want is to score at least, or excuse me, his want is to score more than 1 this end. His need is to at least steal 1 this end to give himself a reasonable chance to come back. And what he can't do is let David score any points on this end. If he does, it's going to be exceedingly difficult in the 8th end to come home, even with hammer scoring 3. Rock is coming down. David immediately calls for sweep, but he's now saying over and up, letting that rock curl down to its stopping point and letting it curl as much as possible to get to the outside. David is playing aggressively to try and get the 2 points on this end, or at the very least to try and make sure his guards aren't ending up being a problem for him later to remove those red rocks if they do manage to get one buried in the house. Nick is calling for a second center guard, because if he can get a rock hidden behind there later, having 2 guards will be significantly better for him to be able to protect that shot rock than if he only has 1 in the way. So he could call for the rock to be drawn in on this one, but he's going for the approach that gives him a better chance to get the 1.
You don't want the guard back? Corner guard?
And it looks like it is going to be a very nice center guard, just to the other side of center from where his last guard went, and sitting maybe 10 feet shorter from the other one, making it a very difficult run back in order to get both of those guards out of play. So that is a very, very good result. We're trying to see when JR moves out of the way if we can tell what the score result is.
Line's good. Yep, go. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Rocks coming down.
Yes. All the way.
Looks like David was calling for them to take the middle away from Nick. It looks like that rock may be coming up short, or if it does, no, it's going to get into the house, and it looks like it's going to mostly bury. I'm going to get over, if my headphone cords will allow me to get far enough to look from the hack. It is maybe a quarter exposed from the right-hand hack, which Rachel's throwing out of. It is not the easiest shot to take out, which is why immediately Nick abandons that takeout and goes over to the right-hand side of the house to try and draw one in the other direction with a little more depth into the house than the 12-foot that yellow is currently sitting at. There's definitely room to outdraw it, so there's really no reason to aggressively go for the hit at this point in the end. In fact, it looks like it's tracking really nicely to get behind those guards. If they judge the speed right, this is going to stop right around the pin, just 2 inches behind the pin. That is fantastic position for the draw from Rachel Brower.
I want to get rid of this.
And suddenly David is now left to chase that shot rock, and he's immediately calling for peels, trying to remove those red guards in the front. Mike asked him to go from the other side because of the bigger chance of getting the double if they throw it perfect. I'm not sure Mike was entirely on Broom. He might have been a little bit narrow on that release, though it hung on its line real early and maybe even drifted out a little bit, but it is successful to remove that top guard with the peel. So very likely now Nick is going to be calling just to put that guard right back where it was before. Could also aggressively go for another rock in the house, but yes, as expected, he points out to the top of the house, calls for that center guard, and asks for Rachel to put it back. Really, that's all he has to do the rest of the way, is put those guards back as they peel them off in order to make sure he can score his 1. They leave one slightly off center, though. He will give yellow a chance to promote that rock on the top of the 12-foot, maybe being able to knock them out. This is significantly narrow for that center guard based on how much it's been curling all day. This one has a very large chance of over-curling. The sweepers are doing a great job of holding the line. Maybe this will stay in good enough position. It'll be a second guard, but it's a second guard that protects the wrong side of the rock for the situation of play, because that yellow promote is still very much there if they want to go for it. Though David's calling for the peel on the top rock, which will give him a chance to get both of them out of the way if they're successful in this hit.
Yes. Yep.
Looks again like Mike might have been a little narrow out of the hand. In fact, he was very narrow out of the hand. It's curling to the wrong side of the rock for the peel, and it only gets the 1, though it does move the yellow guards further to the outside, which at least leaves the middle open for them to try and get a hit on later. Immediately, Nick again calling for another center guard to be put back up, so that'll be Adam's job with this 5th rock of the end. trying to see what's going on down on sheet D, but it just looks like there are a cluster of rocks in the house. So I can't really tell you yet who has the advantage there very clearly. We'll wait and see how that one shakes out when they post the score. On sheet C, they're playing the 7th end with Team Special Sauce making a big comeback in the 6th end, currently sitting down by 1, 7-6. So they made a 3-point comeback, stealing 3 in the 6th end. That was an incredible play by their team. So Nick does successfully get his center guard from Adam, but it is very close with those rocks on top of each other. So David's going to call for an up-weight hit from Luke, looking for that peel again. If they hit just to the left-hand side of the nose, you are looking at it from the same perspective I am on this end, they will be able to remove both of them. Luke was a little wobbly on that delivery, pulling it back close to the line at the end though, calling for sweep immediately, though they need to call him off if they want the best result of that double. Looks like they may have only got the 1, but it did open up that yellow rock a little bit for the promote, but without getting the double, that Red's just going to be able to put that back again. Nick moves right back to the same spot he's called each of these other guards on, maybe an inch or two further out, knowing that he wants to cover up that yellow promote. And off Adam goes to put it back. Seems a little slower than his last delivery, and that's probably intentional because his last one definitely came in a little too deep. No, these sweepers are immediately signaling they think it's about the same, maybe too heavy. It is not curling all that much either, so it is gliding down towards the house. Will it take a bite and get over to the position? It started curling at the end, but it's actually going to come right down to the other red rock. That is something that David should be lining up right for a nose hit, which is what he's signaling to Luke. If they get that on the nose, they will remove both the red rocks and give themselves a potential shot at that shot rock on the back of the 4-foot that Rachel threw earlier for their last rock. Doesn't look like Luke gave this enough force to hold the line perfect. I could be wrong, but looks like it's going to curl over to the other side of the face. Can they get the double? It does open it up, maybe not as much as they'd really like, and it does spill the red rock onto the house. So now the risk is, if Red removes that top yellow before the end of this end, there is a chance for Red to actually score 2 or more if they're able to get it set up for that. This is actually a bit of a dangerous situation for Stone Cold Sweep Offense.
Because if we get this to go, we're shot here. So I don't even care if you roll open right here, we're okay. So the idea is to hit this right here.
So, of course, to protect their shot position, they are calling for a center guard yet again. Now they're having to come from the other side with all the junk in the way of them throwing from the same way they've done before. So they may not really know how much room to give on this, how much ice to give. So there's a little bit of a risk switching sides, and they're not going to be as familiar with the timing on this either. So we'll see whether Nick can find the correct amount of weight for this line and whether this broom is exactly where they need to be. Coming the other way, they have a lot of data on where it's going to need to go. Coming this direction, not as much. So sweepers think it's a little light. Adam thinks it's curling a lot early. They jump on for the sweep, much as they can give. Get it over that line. Do not hog. And it looks like it's gonna just barely, no, it hogged. That is devastating for Team To Be Determined. Now, Team Stone Cold Sweep Often has a big decision to make. Do they try to run back their own rock? Do they try and draw down on top of that red rock? There are a couple ways they can play this. Do they try and do a down weight hit, which should have space there to be able to do it if they throw something kind of back line to hackish? I mean, it's there, but it's a thin shot. You can only really see about half to a third of that rock from the hack. I'd be surprised if they don't go for it. No, David's signaling like he wants to throw a draw. He's going to try and draw down on top of that red rock and make it just difficult for Nick to score more than one. He is being very conservative given his lead and this situation in the game, but it's certainly not a bad call. He just has to be able to accurately throw this draw to make this rock count. If he doesn't make this, then Nick's just going to put back up a center guard, hopefully not hogging it again. This was their opportunity to go for the hit on that shot rock. They really won't get another one if they don't make this draw here. Give less ice, knowing they're probably going to be throwing this more like back 4, back 8. They don't want to under curl and just go right through. If they can at least pick this out. I'm not sure that's not narrow. Get on that rock. It is narrow, but they're holding the line well so far. When we call him off of it at the right moment, it's going to get to the shot rock of red on the outside edge. It is going to just give it a nudge back. That is a fantastic shot. It does put David's team back in a position where they are sitting shot rock. They didn't get the red one out far enough that they are also second, but they are sitting 1-3 right now, and that pretty much means there is no way for Nick's team to get more than one on this end as they're throwing their last rock. So that is an ideal situation. David threw a great shot there to set this up. Now Nick appears to be trying to do his own down weight draw to tap yellow back and hopefully get on the inside edge to roll under. Best I can figure, a draw at this point won't help him. He's got to give yellow a nudge back because the pin is not available to him. If he just sits on top of that yellow rock, he is not in shot position. So he's got to give just enough weight that he's going to give that yellow rock a shove back, and I assume he's going to want to give it a shove back to your right. You're in the same angle I am on this end, and roll his own rock just a little bit under that yellow to the left. Immediately calling on for the sweep as the line may be narrow. Can they hold that line? Adam is screaming hard at the top of his lungs. Can they squeak it by that rock in the front of the yellow? They do. Another fantastic rock. In fact, they remove the yellow from the house. No matter what team they are rooting for, people in the warm room are cheering the shot because that is fantastic. That is one of the best shots of the day. Nick hit exactly what he needed. Now, this leaves an open shot, though, because he didn't quite get to Barry. Quite honestly, there was no way for them to throw that any better than what they did, squeaking by that guard. Quick update on scores while David and his team discuss what to do. On sheet D, after 7 ends, the score is 4-3 with curlers to be named later leading over Big Ray. So it's right down to the finish, tight game on sheet D. On sheet C, I don't know if they've hung the score yet. Oh, in fact, they're not done the 7th end yet, so I'll give you an update on that one when they're actually finished. Looks like currently the red team is sitting 1 with yellow just barely an inch or 2 off for the second rock. So real tight end with a lot of potential to go either way right now. Looks like David's team has decided what they're going to do. My best guess is they're going to try and throw another draw, to tap the red rock through. The risk of this is one of two things. Either if their draw hits too thin and they spill their rock out too far, they could leave that back red in shot position. Or they could end up, if they hit it just a little to the right of the shot rock, they could end up promoting the red rock back into a jam position where it just ends up on top of the red rock in the back, and that would also leave red still in shot position. So just because David has the last rock here does not mean that they're going to end up with a shot at the end. They are heavy and narrow. Luke immediately calling for sweep. This is dangerous. If they don't hold this line, they could give red 2 and make it a tie game. Oh, that is over curled onto the yellow rock. That is exactly what looks like it's going to happen unless this promotes right down on top of the red rock. That is really close from our camera angle, and it cuts red down to 1. Oh my God, that was the risky backdoor way to get that result. It looked like it was about to end in disaster, especially with the sweepers saying that it was heavy, and it turned out just fine to give them a chance to go into the last end up 1 after 7 ends. Team Stone Cold Sweep Often leads 6-5. After a quick break to rehydrate, let me just say, having 3 games going on the ice, where all of them are currently within 1 point, is fantastic. It says that these 3 games are being played at a really, really competitive level between these teams, and that's fantastic to see at an in-house bond spiel, where you're trying to just promote friendships and new teams across the board. The big spiel is always designed to have at least 2 of the curlers be newer curlers, people who are less than 5 years of experience. So a lot of the teams really haven't played together before, or at least not with any significant amount of time. So their ability to play together as a team is generally not as high a level as some of the more experienced teams in the competitive leagues at the club. But they are playing really well by the end of this tournament, playing at least 3 or 4 games together as a team at this point. Now, David's team is trying to put a rock in the house here early, just to give them something that's going to count. Looks like this rock is going to do that just fine, maybe end up a guard, but that's not terrible either. Being up 1 with hammer, you really don't want anything being too much of a guard. So this rock that comes down in the house to the back of the house is really just fine. Ultimately speaking, what they want to do is just make sure they remove those red guards and give themselves an open shot at the red shot rock at the end of the game. Even if they don't score any points, as long as red doesn't score, they win the game. Jacob delivering his second rock, trying to put a guard a little closer to the center line. It is hanging again out wide. Can Adam promote this rock enough to get it back to a more central position? Doesn't look like the rock is cooperating. It is slowing down drastically. It is hanging out wide. They are actually going to sweep it almost exactly in line with their other one, but they are very close together, and they are only guarding the edge of the 4-foot. The problem with this is that now, even if they get a rock behind that, it's going to leave David a chance to outdraw them at the end of the game. So I'm sure this is not really what Nick was ideally looking for. I wouldn't be surprised if he actually calls another guard with his next shot. Now David, in a move that can potentially come back to haunt him later in the game if it doesn't get to exactly the right spot, calls for a draw behind those red guards. In my experience, up 1 with hammer, it is dangerous to go for that type of a play. You really just want to get those guards out of the way, which this is actually going to do for them, not by the planned call, but by splitting the rocks off. As I suggested he might, Nick calls for a center guard, despite the fact that he needs a rock in the house, just because he needs something that can actually protect his shot rock as close to pin as possible, so David doesn't have that draw to the middle at the end of the game. And the rock is off. Looks like it's a little bit better line than what we're seeing from Jacob. It is cutting almost immediately, though. They may need to sweep to resistor. This might over-curl the center line. It's also slowing down drastically if they don't sweep. Nope, it's going to make it over. But as I surmised, it's going to over-curl the center, and it is going to protect pretty much the same spot that their other guard is protecting on the, well, for you, left-hand side. So now they are guarding the edges of the forefoot, but they don't have that ideal center guard, which will really allow them to set up for the win. Looks like, yep, David's calling for a peel to remove that for you. I guess that's going to be left-hand guard since this is the reverse perspective end. Michael's rock is off. Looks like it's very close to hitting the broom. Sweepers immediately on it to hold the line. Last thing they want to do is replace that guard. They got to hit it and have their own roll out, and they have successfully done that. So they got rid of one of the guards from play. It's going to stick around out there on the wings as a second counting rock, but quite honestly, the rocks in the wings are irrelevant. As long as they prevent red from scoring, it does not matter. So really, red is playing to control that middle of the ice, and those rocks on the wings, whether they score 1, 2, or 0, yellow can win the game. So it's nice that they're there, but for the purpose of this end, they really don't mean a whole lot. Rock is on its way. Looks like the line is about the same, but this time they get on the sweep a little earlier to try and hold its line. Now that it's curling back, oh, they need to stay on this for weight, potentially. Yeah, they're gonna have to drag this to get it to center this time. They held maybe too much early on, though it is gonna come down just a few inches off of center. That is fantastic as the result goes. That said, here comes David right up on top to put his broom right next to one of them to get them out of play. Now he can just go to remove the one rock in the middle they just put up, or he can go for the double peel on the 2 reds. He's going to go conservative on this. Mike calling to ask for it to come across the other direction. I agree with Mike on this one. I think this is the riskier play with no backup plans. Can they hold it? Just enough. They're going to end up removing one of their own rocks, but again, those rocks on the wing really don't mean a whole lot to the end result of this end. Removing the center guard was the most important thing for them. And once again, Nick calling for it to go back up, because unless that center guard can stay, they're leaving David that draw at the end of the game. So they really, really want to have a center guard stick around and hope that David's team will miss a peel somewhere along the way or end up jamming one so that the yellow rock sticks around. Without one of those results at the end, they're going to have to just draw under those rocks on the edge of the forefoot, try and control at least a tighter scoring area that David will have to outdraw. And it's going to take something really good from Nick to be able to make that happen and be fully buried. It is drawing down nicely to the center, though. Looks like this is going to be great on its own, leaving his sweeper's arms a little bit of a break here late in the game. It is going to come down very tight to the house as a nice 3-guard does not allow David to be able to do the double that was a possibility on the last one. Here goes the broom, calling for Luke to remove it. A normal weight or peel weight removal. Here it comes. Luke comes a little offline with his body, but he arms it back online. It's actually kind of his typical delivery, so just fine. Oh my God, that is over curling though. Is that even gonna hit? And it's kind of down weight. Will it remove far enough? No, he has replaced that red rock with his own and promoted red into shot position right now. That allows Nick to immediately call for that draw in. The plan B, as Adam was just talking about, is if the rock hangs, to be able to wick off of that red rock and go in. They may even be making that the primary call based on this broom. I don't know that that's going to come back enough based on what we've seen from these last couple guards once they get out to this line. And they are jumping on sweep in the promote position right away to try and get it to curl more. I don't think that's getting all the way under that guard, but it might have enough energy to promote that red in further. It might not even get there. Well, it's curling a lot at the end. That is getting underneath with a rapid hook at the end, and they are now sitting first and second shot with their primary first shot rock 100% buried under that yellow rock. David has to feel like the game has completely turned against him in the last 2 shots. He is going to remove that red rock aggressively. The double is sort of there on the outside end. I don't think they're trying to call it. They're just going to remove 1. Worst case, if they keep that red to 1, they will force an extra end, which is better than the possible result if they left them able to get 2. Looks like Adam and Nick are talking about guarding that so that yellow can't just remove them. It was either that or drawing another rock in. On sheet C, on the 7th end, Big Lawrence scored 1 point, so now they're going into the 8th end up 2 at 8-6 over Special Sauce. It looks to me like on sheet D, they are taking the rocks back to the other end, and here is the score. It is tied after 8 at 4-4. We have an extra end on sheet D. This is fantastic. Potential of 2 games going to an extra. This is tight and competitive curling here today. Quite honestly, sheet C may also go to an extra end, and I have one of the skips from sheet A self-depreciatingly saying that it wasn't close on his game, so fair enough, but not trying to talk bad on my end. Nick's rock is on the way, nice and gentle. Looks like he's going to go for that guard. They better get on this, though, if they actually want to have this guard stay in a line that is useful. Well, it's holding itself pretty well on the line without sweeping, and there it goes for a little bit of the over curl I was worried about. They're going to have that run back. They have completely over curled. If I'm yellow, I go for that run back on the center. All they have to do is remove that red rock in shot position, and it becomes exceedingly difficult. Either going to make that run back or just go with a straight hit on the red. David signaling for the run back. That's kind of what I'd go for as well. There's a wide arc on that top yellow rock that they can hit that will allow them to remove that red rock, and it does not matter if their yellow shooter or the yellow rock they're promoting sticks around afterwards. Again, all they have to do is make sure that red does not score 1. It doesn't matter if they get 1, 2, or 8. Obviously not set up to get 8, but just saying hypothetically. It's rocking. It is very wide of target. They're going to have to require that to come back a significant way. It does not look like it's going to cooperate. It is going to possibly, whoa, take a wick off, knock one of the reds out. It did not remove the red rock though, so what Nick needs to do is put back a perfect center guard, and it's going to protect their ability to score that 1 this end and force an extra. Conversation behind me I can't entirely argue with, that just go ahead and try and draw a second rock in. The danger of that is if you miss the draw and you end up leaving an open draw for David, he could end up out-counting you that way as well.
I like the guard too. I'm just making sure that we're giving ourselves the best option first.
Looks like Nick is seriously considering it, playing for the win rather than playing for the tie. It all depends whether he goes with his need or gives into his want as far as the game is concerned. Because his need is to score that 1. His want is to go for the win right now. It's which one wins out, and he ends up calling him back for the guard in the end. So he plays for his needs to get that 1 point for an extra end, make David make something exceedingly difficult to try and outscore him. It is possible doing an angle raise on that rock on the outside left, but that's far from an easy shot in order to do that. So he's going to make David make a really good shot and guard up his shot rock now. A lot of discussion back by the hack, communicating with sweepers about what he's looking for out of this shot. Rock is hanging out wide. That's going to have to take a cut. There it goes. Can they get it back far enough to make this count? Looks like it might be able to get there. All three sweepers getting into the action on it. And it is not fully covering that red rock. The question is, are they going to swing for it? I can't imagine them not doing so. A nice bumper to hack weight hit. Removing that from shot position is all they need. David's giving himself a very tight line. He's probably asking for control weight if he's giving that broom. I'd feel like I might want to come a little more down weight and let it actually have the chance of curling, let my sweepers do some work for me. But that's also my style of skipping, not necessarily the style of most people at this club. If he makes this shot, they win the game by a significant margin. If he misses it, they go to an extra end. After controlling the game just 2 ends ago, there is a chance that this is tied. Let's see what happens. Shot is on its way. Sweepers say immediately it's control weight. It's hanging. Will it take a bite and get there?
No.
It's close. It got a piece of it. Will it spill it far enough? No. No, it does. Maybe. I can't tell where that rock on the top is. It is still red. We have an extra end. Or is it? Well, it looks like it is going to an extra end, and the skips are going down the other way. Traditionally, you'd move the rocks to the other side and throw the final end back this way again, but looks like the skips had other ideas. So we'll play the 8th end going away from our warm room. Or 9th, excuse me, 9th end. Tied after 8. Depending on how long this end takes, I may have to leave you on commentating. I do have somewhere I need to be at 3 o'clock, but I'm going to try and stick with you to the bitter end depending on how fast they decide to make their pace of play here.
No, you don't. Center guard.
Little tie in. Okay.
Yep. Nice shot. Yep.
Mine's better. Yeah, let's come back. Never touch it. Sit down now. Very nice, Jake.
Wow, look at that. A perfect.
Can't get in all the way. Sorry. Eric's lane. Little more.
Line's good. Yeah! Moving a lot. I think it picked. Yep. Whoa. Yep. Take that out.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think a second guard.
What? Okay. Okay.
It's gonna be tight, guys. It's tight. It's tight. Yeah. Go ahead. Yep. Got a little chop on ours. That's okay.
Big normal right between them.
Okay. Want to hit right here. No. I think we got it. It's gonna be close. Good shot, Mike.
Same way.
Mine's better. Whoa, take it. I think you're fine, guys. Whoa, take a look. Go behind now. Yep. Good throw. This week, guys.
Yeah, we hit the inside, we'll catch the back of our yellow and roll in.
What? Hit this
We're
here?
on the inside, we can catch the back of our yellow and roll on.
Yep. Yes! Whoa! Yeah! Moved a lot.
I'm a little worried about hitting this thing.
We're not going to come this way. Yeah. I'm trying to get one on the screen. Okay. And up. Go, Paul. Yep.
All the way.
That's fine. Nice job. Wide open. You want to guard it, Nick?
Yeah, I need to guard it.
Okay. Touch less. Yeah.
Whoa. Never. No. No.
No.
You're like
That's going to make it go more.
resisting won't help it at this point.
We should have been on earlier.
This one?
See half, or two-thirds actually. Take the guard's fine.
If we hit the guard.
Control.
Yes! Whoa!
Go, Wade.
Yeah, that's good. Roll it.
Come on, Dave. Get it! Come on, Dave! Hold it. Nice shot.
We can use this as a tap.
There, double it. Yeah.
I think you have to come this way. Oh, no, I mean,
No, you can do it this way. And on it, I mean, as long as you get rid of this way, I don't really care. Yeah. No, I actually kind of want to try the double.
well, go ahead then. Sure.
You know, if it comes there, I think you should throw normal at it. Or do you want to throw control?
So let's say I hit it in someplace random, right? Like here, we don't get the double. If we end up here, that's
I mostly just want to make sure this goes away.
okay. I mean, I want to make sure that we keep the
These,
shooter.
yeah, you're right. So we should throw control.
Actually, no. As long as if it doesn't count this rock, it doesn't matter, right? So either we get the double, or we get something really like flat. I've never just played this draw.
Okay.
If we play this draw, they're gonna have stuff like this, right? So we need to get it.
Yep. Control.
Yeah, I think we need to get control.
Like here.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's moving a bit.
Okay. So quiet out here. Throw like, are you thinking like 10 or 9.5? Okay. More?
Yeah, no more. I tried getting out last.
Well, Nick, if you peel the guard, it gives you a better shot at the one in the back.
Wait, what?
If you clear that guard, then we've got a shot at this one.
Throw it hard. Clear the guard.
If that happens. touching 4, guys, no matter what.
Okay.
If it's close, wait to sweep. You guys know a time?
We thought 80.
Okay, as long as you're all in agreement. I got it. I'm good. Okay? Okay. Sit around. Sit. It's fine on its own. Don't touch it.
I'm not touching it. Great shot, Nick.
Excellent.
We've done what we can.
You did what you could.
Sorry, I should have had him go.
No, that's fine. All right. So we've got to hit it. It has to go back here. Right. So I think we want our same.
I mean, make another throw.
We've got to get to here. So even if don't worry about the guard. Just
No. I'm really proud of us clawing this one back. Sound good?
I'm glad that we gave you what's the show. We got to get it to about here.
I don't want to throw anything different than we have. There's no reason to mix up the board.
I can throw a little bit less than I've been throwing.
Maybe barrier? Just a suggestion.
How about peel?
Hey guys, come on, it's fine. Yeah, I like it. Is barrister? That's the way.
You have more than I know.
Little down. No, wide. Way wide. I don't think that much. Nope. No chance. No chance.
Great game. Sorry about the stop.
Really good game. Oh, no.
Good game, guys. Good. Way to sink in.
Incredible. Again. Dave, that's one of the most intense back and forth games